that things got so fucked up with us. I never...
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration? I didn't mean to do that. Please, continue. You were saying something about best intentions. What's the matter? Oh, you were finished. Oh, well, allow me to retort.
Concept, African Americans ain't African. Where did you come up with that concept, and what are you trying to say to the people, and why should we believe that?
Most Africans don't know what that term means, so we're calling ourselves names that we ourselves don't even know where the term comes from. Ask the average African American, ask them, where in Africa are you from, or what does the term African mean, and watch the looks on their faces.
Why are you telling us this information now when we've already accepted those terminologies?
Adults have taught our children to be Africans. They taught them to be black. They taught them to be niggas. They taught them to be colors. They taught them to be Christians. We're taught them to be Muslims. We're teaching our kids to be all of these things, and we're none of those things. And when we're taught that we're these things, that's what we begin to act like. We cut ourselves totally off from nature, and you see what we have now.
So why do you say in your video that we're the footstool to the world? What are you trying to say? We're stupid or something?
I'm saying that if you look at African Americans, in every African American community around this country, foreigners come in and set up shop in their community. The African Americans don't produce anything to trade in the world. We don't produce cars, we don't produce clothes, we don't produce medicine, we don't produce educational material for our children. All of these things are imported into us from other nations and other nations around us. So we're the other people. When I said footstool, what I meant is that other people come over here and rest their feet on us to lift themselves up. And that's apparent when you walk through the communities in America.
You spoke about Dr. Bobby Wright. I never heard of him, and who is that anyways?
The most serious mistake you can make is to try to use white definitions to try to define and understand black phenomena, black behavior. The most serious thing, to use white definitions. He who defines rules. If you accept my definition of the world, I will rule you.
And he was a doctor in Chicago that opened the first mental health, all-black mental health facility in Chicago. And what Dr. Wright found was most of the so-called African American or black people, they were mentally twisted by the society that they lived in, or the society that we lived in. So he coined this term called menticide. And here's the definition of menticide. And I heard him, this was 30 years ago when I heard him make this statement. To destroy a person or group's mind with the ultimate goal of being destruction of that person or group. And when he said this in 1980, you know, I'm just coming into this information. I'm a young man, I'm coming in this information. In those past 30 years, you could see that that's exactly what happened. We're being destroyed on this planet. We're not having babies like we should. The jails are becoming even more bigger, and the people on the street, our children, are becoming more dumber. I mean, if you look at how we're acting on the streets and how we behave we're just going to a road of destruction. We don't go out and produce anything. Our minds aren't the genius that they once were. We don't believe we can do anything. Everything we get, everything we tell our children to get, everything that we aspire, everything that we want is from somebody else.
So if we're Americans, then how come we can't share with the other people?
Because they're not sharing with you, number one. They come to your land, take your resources and everything on it, and take it for the betterment of themselves, and give you the leftovers. You can't go to England and take their forest and take their water rights and tell them, I'm going to have it, keep it to myself first, and give you the leftovers. That's exactly what they're doing here.
In the video you said that there was a definition of America, and you used the dictionary from 1826 or 28. Why would you refer to that dictionary? It's outdated.
The history of African Americans or black people, one of the things you know about the history of African American and black people is that during 1828 it was against the law for you to read. So if you were caught reading, you could be beaten, fined, jailed, sometimes even killed, because you were getting knowledge that those people didn't want you to have. Now, being that we couldn't read those books, we could read those books today. And in one of the ways finding out what's wrong with us, I think it's critical that we go back and read the literature that they said our foreparents couldn't read. Two reasons why. If a people was coming over here telling you that they're democratic, that they're loving, and this all men are created equal, why would they tell this certain group of people that they can't read? These are the questions we should be asking. These are the questions that the civil rights people should have been asking. These are the people that these are the questions that the Reconstruction group of people should have been asking. But we don't ask questions. We just basically do what we're told to do. For us to use those books that they said our parents couldn't read to go back and see what was being set up and planned without our knowledge, without us being a part of it. And once we go back and read those books and read that literature, we can see how they got over on us. So they said it was against the law for us to read. So in 1828, it's against the law for you to read. So when you go back and look up the definition of American, what does it say? Because Europeans aren't Americans, they're Europeans. So when you go back to the 1828 dictionary and it says the definition of America, the Aboriginal or copper-colored people born in America, found here by the Europeans, but now applied to the Europeans and their descendants. What does that mean?
So you're trying to say everything is a lie? That we've been taught to believe in a facade or something?
Right. You've been taken out of a natural environment. This is where we're having the problem. You've been taken out of a natural environment and placed in an artificial environment. The artificial environment is to make money for other people. It's not for your benefit. You're used more like commerce. That's why you have numbers attached to you. Driver's license number, social security number, you have all these numbers. Your commerce is like a stamp. And to get your benefits, you have to show your number. We're not natural people no more. Our children don't know anything about farming and not trying to know.
So you suggest that we're African, we're not from Africa. How do we get over here if you denounce the slave trade that happened years ago for us to be here? And how can you make such a statement to say that was all a lie?
When you ask yourself questions on the slave trade, your indwelling intelligence will kick out the correct answers, but you have to ask the correct questions. Questions like, what forests were chopped down to get the wood to build all of those ships? Where were the ships built? Remember, these ships were wooden. How would they be repaired if something happened at sea? How long was the trip, in distance and time? If the people were packed in like sardines, how did they eat and drink? What did they eat and drink? What about body waste? You mean to tell me that these people just pissed and shit on each other for months? And remember, shit is toxic. Only when you question the validity of the African slave trade, only will you get the correct answers, and you will realize that the story is a bunch of feces. Now, Many of you are already asking, why would they go through the trouble of telling us that story? As you will see, it was no trouble at all.
Like I said before, African Americans don't question anything. They just do what they're told. That's first and foremost. Think about it. Think about everything you've ever done in your life. You're told to do it. And whatever you're told to do is nothing that you thought of as a group or independently. For instance, what are your holidays? Do most of us celebrate our grandmother's birthday as a major holiday for our families? No. We celebrate other people's holidays and love it.
We were brought over here as slaves, and
Okay,
you're stating that we haven't, that didn't happen. So how, who gave you the authority to say that, and who do you think you are to say that that's not true when that's our history?
Right, but that's the history that other people gave you. Now, this is what I mean why you have to ask questions. When the slave story, this was something that was told to us. We didn't even write the story. We didn't have nothing to do with the story. It's a story that was given to us, and if you ask some questions on the slave trade, you will see that the story is bullshit. Question number one, where are all the boats that brought these slaves over here? Now you would figure, I've heard there were tens of millions that died in the Middle Passage. Okay, all the other people that made it, where are the boats that brought them over here? Where are the boats? What African continent, what African nation is claiming that you're her lost people? These are questions that needs to be asked. If so many people were taken out of Africa, Africa is the third largest continent population-wide in the world today. If all of those people were taken out of Africa, do you think they would be the third largest populated continent today? They would hardly have no people there.
So it was all a lie. It was all a lie.
These are questions that we have to ask. They just tell us stuff, and we believe it. And we pass it down to our children, and we add stuff to it and add ideas and our own thoughts to it, and it's all bullshit. If you thought about it, the whole story is logically and logistically impossible.
100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land.
Well, I brought that up because what does that statement mean? I mean, a lot of times the statements about Martin Luther King are given to us by the mainstream media. But what did that statement mean? And we don't never question anything, so we never find out what it means. So what does it mean when Martin Luther King says 100 years later the Negro finds himself exiled in his own land? When you ask this question to the average black person, they don't have a clue because they haven't formulated the thought in their head. So what he was saying was we are being kicked around in our own land. And the reason I use Martin Luther King is because everybody refers to him when it has something to do with us. And you're right, Martin Luther King did lead us into that what we now call and know as the civil rights sham.
So what do you mean by the civil rights sham? Isn't that what's supposed to bring us all together and make everything equal?
Well, if you had 50 years of it, has it brought us together? Are you still on the bottom of the economic ladder, the social ladder in America? Aren't you still on the bottom? You can let it roll. Aren't you still on the bottom? Do you produce anything for yourself? Do you teach your children anything? Do you manufacture anything? Or do you get it from foreigners and they make their money off of you? That's what's happening. That's the reality of what's happening. The civil rights movement, all the civil rights movement did was give Negroes the right to buy other people's stuff. It was a business move. And we fell for it. Because remember, before that, before the civil rights movement, we had our own stores. We were manufacturing our own things. But in order to make that money off the majority of the people in this country, they had us join them. And the only thing we joined them is buying their goods. And that's it. So that was the whole thing of the Civil Rights Jam. You've gotten the education. What are you doing with education now? Building other people's stuff. You don't build your car manufacturer. You don't build anything. So the purpose for you is the purpose to educate you was to educate you so you can build somebody else's empire.
So you're trying to say we're still under some type of form of slavery here in this so-called free country?
Who religions do you practice? Who names do you carry? The same people who colonized you.
They business by black. Get your gas, straight your back, get your life back. You can send them hoes to hell when you fight back. You fight like that, like give them their shit right back. Give it back. They religion, they business by black. Get your gas, straight your back, get your life back. You can send them hoes to hell when you fight back. You fight like that. Dear Jesus, where you at, nigga? It's 2014, said you coming, we ain't seen you yet, nigga. Down here you keep your word, she don't flex, nigga. And if you coming, then you better join the set, nigga. That's RPG, red, black, and green, respect, nigga. Crucified, but you ain't bled like we bled, We seen niggas get shot in the head and live. What you supposed to come and raise the dead like we scared, nigga? Say will a man rob God, but will he rob me? I got a baby, and they keep asking for offer. I draw heat, the police keep trying to offer me. The bitches trying to put a line on the dog leash. Talk shit, bitch, I been in this shit balls deep. But y'all the one that's on that fuck shit. Y'all sheep, it's raw beef. Tone the vision till we all free. I stay on track, even when I'm rapping off beat. Give them their shit right back, give it back. They religion, they business by black. Get your gas, straight your back, get your life back. You can send them hoes to hell when you fight back. Like that, like give them their shit right back, give it back. They religion, they business by black. Get your gas, straight your back, get your life back. You can send them hoes to hell when you fight back. Like that, give them back they polo, give them back they true religion. Give them back that Bible, RPG, the new religion. Why you think they innocent? The shortest who in prison. Babies with life sentences who'll never have no children. Give them back they school system, make our children dumb. Give them back them books that start our history 1600. Give them back them cracker teachers. Give them back Columbus. Give them back that Ridley that they tried to give your daughters. Give them back that house nigga they put in their office. Give them back these cracker rappers that they keep rewarding. Give them back McDonald's, give back Burger King, they waffles. Serving y'all niggas human flesh for $1. Give them back that turban, give them back that Arab culture. Give them back that false trust that gathers paranoia. Incorporate my eye and give them back that patriarchal bullshit and everything your master say he taught you.
So if we keep down, if we continue to do what we're doing, then you know what ultimately you think is going to happen?
Extinction. Because you're no good no more. Now they have other workers coming over here to take your place. The Mexico was one. You're getting the cheap labor from Mexico, but the cheap labor that you're about to get from China is gonna make the Mexico labor look cheap, make the Mexico labor look expensive. Because they don't, you're not needed no more. You're not populating like you once should, like you once did. We don't even really like kids no more, really. We don't have them. You have a huge culture of homosexualism in the black community, lesbianism. That group of people don't create children. And that area is growing. You have few sets of our population that don't like kids. So we're dying out.
What is the solution at this point? to help us get out of this situation? Or is there a solution?
I think a lot of us are going to die out because it's been going on too long. We have been stuck on stupid for way too long. And it's like we're comfortable with it. And if you let people know this happened, if you let people know that this is what's happening, they're kind of resigned to the fact. Many don't care. If you talk to many African Americans, they really don't care what's happening. As long as they get their check, they're fine. So the solution, I think, is gonna have to be, a lot of us are gonna. It was kind of like the Jim Jones thing in Guyana a few years ago. Remember that? About 1,000 Negroes followed this white boy down to South America, and they end up drinking Kool-Aid. If you notice, when that happened, the African American community never really made a big stink about that. So now you're going to have that happen on a mass level, and you see it's happening now with the abortions, with all the surgeries we're getting to try to make ourselves look better. We're trying to fit in so bad that we're killing ourselves off, and we don't even recognize it. So the solution, I mean, it's always been education. But I think we're going to have to change that word, because education, we got all the education in the world, and we are some of the non-thinkingest, we're the most non-thinkingest nation of people in the world. We don't think about what's best for us. We think about what's best for others. And that's going to have to stop. We're going to have to educate our children, ourselves. I mean, how come whatever education, whatever we want education to be, that's what it should be.
So, well, what about we voted Barack Obama in, and so aren't we going down the right path?
Did Barack Obama mama go through what your mama went through? Did Barack Obama's father, does he have the same background as your father's here? No, he's a foreigner. And we always want foreigners to rule our lives. That's a question that has to be asked. Why do we mind that? How come we don't care if other people come in from other places to run our lives? Why are we so comfortable with that?
Give us an idea of what we're doing wrong, then what are the actual solutions that we can take and give to our next generation of kids so that they won't do the same?
You're going to have to connect them back to the land. We're landless people. We're not connected to anything. We call ourselves Africans, but you see when Africans come over here, they don't jump into bed with you. I mean, they jump into bed with your women and make babies here so they can lock themselves in, but they normally go hang out with the people who sponsored them to be over here. So you have to connect us back to the land, because we feel like we have no part in anything. And if you go over to Africa, Africa's not giving you nothing. Africa doesn't claim you. So the first thing we're going to have to do is claim the land back. Claim your status. Who are you? And you're the Indigenous American. We're the Indigenous Americans. But we call ourselves all these names: Christians, Muslims, Buddhists. We call ourselves all these names, and everybody else is calling themselves you. So they came over here and taken your land and giving you some pipe dream down the road somewhere, and that's what we're following now.
The term Africa, where does that come from?
You know what, that's a good question. And one of the things, we always call ourselves and claim something, we never know what the hell we talking about. We just call ourselves stuff just because we think it's popular. Check out where the name Africa comes from.
The Roman province of Africa was established after the Romans defeated Carthage in the Third Punic War. It roughly comprised the territory of present-day Tunisia, northeastern Algeria, and the Mediterranean coast of modern-day western Libya along the Syrtis Minor. The Arabs later named roughly the same region as the original province, Ifriqiya, a rendering of Africa. The origin of the term Africa is not a name indigenous people picked for themselves. It's a term given by the Judeo-Christian, Nazi German arm of the Roman Catholic Church after they conquered those lands. But how did they come upon the term Africa? The land was named after the Roman general who defeated Hannibal in that Third Punic War, Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus. So the people who call themselves Africans are letting you know this is their origin, and this is who they pledge their allegiance to, the general god Africanus. If you look around America, you'll notice most of the counties, rivers, mountains, and lakes were named in the very same fashion. Europeans coming over, destroying your accomplishments, and renaming them after themselves. The two most popular names, Washington and Jefferson.
So the ones that are calling themselves African Americans, they're calling themselves conquered people of the Roman general Africanus. It's a name that we didn't even come up with. Now these are important terms that we have to understand. We just can't keep calling ourselves these names and terms, and other people know what they mean, but we don't know what they mean. And so when we call ourselves that, we're putting ourselves at risk because we're letting other people know we're coming under this name. And when we call ourselves that, they take advantage of it.
The word black. What do you mean by the? What's your definition? What do you mean by black?
Again, you have to look these terms up and look at the origin of these terms. The word black just basically means blotted out, bleached out. And when we call ourselves Black Americans, we're, in essence, what we're saying is we're blocked out Americans. And we're calling ourselves that. And this is the reason why the education is so pertinent. When you let other people educate you, they're going to educate your children to serve them. And this is what we didn't get during the Civil Rights Movement. We thought the Civil Rights, we were trying to be equal with people. And you're never going to be equal with them. You have to compete against them. And at this time and space in history now, we don't want to compete with nobody. We just want to get along with everybody. And you see what's happening to our communities.
So you're saying we have to change our whole educational system for our people in order for them to get on the right track? I mean, what are you trying to say?
The education system in America is garbage. If you don't know that by now, you're dumb. The education system in America is garbage. Anybody who has a brain knows that.
Well, bottom line is, there's people that are mixed with different races, black and white, and where do these people stand on the fence? You know, how do they define who they are as an American?
They find their bloodlines. Most of them aren't Americans. Most of them are coming from somewhere else. Most of what we do is we like to claim white heritage from some white man somewhere. If you just looked about a year ago, Muhammad Ali went over to look for his Irish roots. Amari Stoudemire, the basketball player, went over to Israel to look for his Jewish roots. Are you serious? Now these entertainers and athletes, they're the ones who got most of us thinking like this, because whatever they do, since white folks love them, we're going to follow what they do. And many of them are twisted.
So you're saying Michael Jackson is not the greatest entertainer of all time?
He may be the baddest entertainer, but you see what he did to himself. He basically killed himself. Yeah, I know he was murdered. Of course he was murdered. But he put himself in a position to be put to sleep and woken up. What kind of shit is that? And look at what he did to himself. And you remember with Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5 when you were a little boy. The girls loved them. All the boys wanted to be him. Them. The brothers. It was 5 brothers, 5, 6 brothers, and they were a group, and they made one badass sound. And this dude grew up and turned himself into, I don't know what that was, but it was horrible. It has to be one of the saddest stories ever in American history.
So what do you have to say to the people in Africa who are watching this video and are questioning you on who are you and what would you have to say to those people in that country?
Many of them probably already know, because many of those people that come from Africa, what we call Africa, they don't call themselves African. They call themselves the bloodline where they from. They call themselves where they from and who are they, their bloodlines. Like they'll call themselves Ghanaian. No, you can let it roll. They call themselves Ghanaians. They call themselves Nigerians, Kenyans. They call themselves their names. They call themselves their bloodline names. Many of them don't call themselves African because many people know what that term means. It's just that the African America doesn't know the African American doesn't know what that term means. So the term African means conquered people. When we call ourselves African Americans, basically we're saying we're conquered Americans. If you're telling the world that you're conquered Americans, they're going to treat you like what? Conquered people. And that's what we're seeing now. Laws and none of that civil rights movement have came to pass. Yeah, you can go. The only people out there, I can go wherever I want to go now. They know they can't. It's like you saying, come to this park. Your mother was saying, we coming to this park. They don't want us down there. What? They're the foreigners. They're from England, Ireland, Scottish, France, and they come over here and make you feel like you don't belong here. And that's exactly where we are now.
So what do you have to say to all the Europeans that probably won't agree with what you're saying?
They won't agree, but they know. They're living comfortable over here. They know. They listen to what they say when they talk about America. They weren't living like this in England. They came over here and found a gold mine. Your gold mine took it from you, and they still enjoying it. And they ain't giving you nothing because you don't claim it. You claim in Africa. You claim in all kind of crap that isn't you. So when you claim that, and other people are coming to claim your stuff, and they're getting it, and you let them know it's okay by calling yourself an African.
Is there any way? Is there any way that we can reverse this systematic process of doom?
Yeah, connect back to the land. Once you get back on the land, the magic, you're gonna work the magic. You just cut off from the land. You in these cities, you in these schools, you don't know, you're cut off from nature. You know nothing about nature. Not every single one, I'm not saying that. But the vast majority of our people that's living in these cities are artificial constructs, and they were made to make the European money. They're not made to make you money. That's why you don't make none. Most black businesses, their own people don't support them. This is reality. So the European already knows what's up. He's over here living large, and he's want to continue to live large. And the way he's going to continue to live large is that you're stupid about who you are. And they've done very well in keeping that going.
Hurricane Katrina should have reminded the African American his status in the Republic. It didn't. The Gulf oil spill is a continuation of Hurricane Katrina to displace the indigenous people of the South yet again.